Hi, I'm Shelley Wood, the Managing Editor at TCTMD, and this is On Record, a regular program looking at hot topics in interventional cardiology and beyond. My guests here today need no introduction. I've got Gregg Stone, Martin Leon, Juan Granada, and as you might have guessed, we're talking about TCT 2019. Gentlemen, I'm hoping you can give me a very brief, exciting intro into what we can expect at this year's meeting. I'm going to start with you, Dr. Leon. Tell us about some late breakers.
Well, first, this is the 31st year of TCT. It's really extraordinary.
Entering the fourth decade, yeah.
Entering the fourth decade, so we're going to enter it, I think, with a great deal of excitement. I think the West Coast has always been very friendly to us, and San Francisco and the new Moscone Center is going to be a wonderful venue.
Yep.
TCT really has featured so many different aspects of the interventional landscape, but one of the areas that's really drawn so much attention over the past certainly decade has been the late-breaking clinical trials.
Yeah.
And without question, this year it's going to be one of the central focuses of TCT. We were fortunate this year; we had more studies that were submitted than ever before.
Everyone wants a late breaker at TCT.
And we really had an opportunity to select from the best of the best. So the 12 trials that were selected as late-breaking trials over 4 days in the main arena at TCT are a very diverse group of critically important trials that certainly are going to impact the way we manage patients.
Okay.
I'll start just by mentioning that for the first time we have a majority of the trials are in the structural heart disease space.
Right.
And they're also very
diverse. Aortic and
mitral,
yeah.
Aortic and mitral. And these are trials that are both, the mitral trials really are an extension of what was done with the initial COAP presentation, looking now at 3-year follow-up and also looking at a cost-effectiveness sub-study. There are some fascinating aortic trials as well. There's the 5-year follow-up on the intermediate risk PARTNER 2A study. There is the sub-study, the CT sub-study of PARTNER 3, which is a fascinating trial that are going to answer some important questions.
Because people were excited to see those results when the low-risk results came out back at ACC, and we were told, no, you got to wait for TCT for those. But this is the leaflet thrombosis and being able to look at whether that's an actual issue or how to manage it. What will people get from these results? Without telling me what they are you looking for?
They're going to have a better understanding as to the frequency, the importance, and the natural history of untreated valve leaflet thickening thrombosis as assessed by an independent core lab with serial examinations over the first year. And
that's key.
The relationship of those observations to clinical outcomes.
So natural history, it's not an intervention on these. I just want to make that point.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, so these are new data that I think will be exciting.
Great.
We also are going to feature some of the new TAVR systems. So we have some pivotal clinical trials, Scope 1, which is Accurate Neo versus SAPIEN 3, and then the Portico trial, which is a Portico self-expanding TAVR system versus the commercial devices. So a lot of interesting structural work that I think you'll see in the main arena.
Is there an appetite for more new TAVR devices, do you think, in the U.S., or are people just set in their ways at this point?
No, I think there is an appetite to see if there are some newcomers that can provide some special benefits in gap areas. So I think all of these trials are going to be exciting.
Sounds good. Greg, you wanted to tell us about some of the coronary late breakers.
Sure. Well, coronary intervention is not dead. Although
to the side. But
although I will say it's now such a mature subspecialty that, frankly, we're trying to look for incremental improvements in outcomes of coronary intervention, and so people are focusing a lot on bleeding. It's very interesting. I mean, bleeding from our work and others has become really recognized as an important predictor of mortality. And so either by streamlining pharmacotherapy or coming up with better drug-eluting stents that can allow short dual antiplatelet regimens, people are trying to reduce bleeding. And so 2 of the focus trials actually are about this. And the one that I'm most excited about is the Twilight trial, which is a very large-scale study.
Dropping aspirin. Everyone wants to drop
Dropping aspirin. So starting from 3 months and on in patients at high risk for PCI, ticagrelor monotherapy versus ticagrelor plus aspirin. So that's very exciting. A second one that I think is very important is that a stent called the BioFreedom, which is a polymer-free drug-coated stent, is the one stent that's really stood out so far for 1 month of dual antiplatelet therapy because there's no polymer on it. It basically turns into a bare metal stent. But several of the manufacturers think that their stents are good enough to take that on. And we'll be presenting a large randomized trial called the Onyx 1 trial of looking at a standard stent, the Resolute drug-eluting stent, which is a very thin biocompatible device, very potent, compared to head-to-head the BioFreedom device in patients at high bleeding risk, 1 month of DAPT. And then I think the other one that I'll really emphasize is that after the Excel trial came out, there was a lot of uptake and excitement about left main intervention. So we'll be presenting the final 5-year data from the Excel trial, again, a randomized trial, PCI versus surgery. And that also has spurred other trials. So we'll have another large-scale trial called Ideal Left Main that will be a trial of 2 different drug-eluting stents and different dual antiplatelet therapy durations in left main disease.
So when Excel first came out, 5 years ago now, I guess, we saw Noble as well, but we're not going to see 5 years of Noble here?
We are going to see, they didn't submit it as a late-breaking trial, but there will be the updated, they originally presented 5-year data, but the median follow-up was 3 years, similar to Excel. Now they have their complete 5-year data, and they will be presenting that in one of the left main sessions. And in fact, we're working with the Noble investigators to pool the data from all the studies. There's 4 left main trials with 5-year follow-up, which we may have a glimpse of that at TCT as well.
Very interesting.
So there's still exciting coronary interventional trials that I think will come out and change practice at TCT.
Yeah. All right. Juan, you historically you want to tell me about innovation, and we had a conversation yesterday, but there's a lot happening. You have more innovation sessions, I think, at this meeting you told me than prior. If I remember that right?
So yeah, no, the innovation session this year is very rich in content. If you actually look at our Shark Tank innovation competition, we got a lot of submissions this year, high quality submissions, and it's amazing to see that the acceptance rate right now is around 15%.
Wow.
So it's really a highly competitive process. It's very competitive, difficult to really get in. And we have an amazing group of people actually reviewing all the applications very carefully, and it's going to be very exciting. But also beyond the Shark Tank innovation competition, we're going to have a fair amount of digital healthcare sessions.
Right.
We're going to have robotics, telemanipulation, virtual reality stuff, and so it's going to be a very interesting session.
And it's the innovation.
The other thing that Juan has done is that a lot of the earlier stage clinical studies that didn't quite make it as a late breaker, but first in man, early feasibility trials, we've kind of shifted over to the innovation session to really support some of the exciting early concepts. So you not only have the concept, but you have some early clinical data, which is a lens into the future. I was going to ask what the
split is between coronary and structural with innovation. Is that also a bit tilted towards structural?
Actually, I would say is 80-20.
Interesting.
Which is interesting. 80-20 structural 80%,
Yeah,
and this is where innovation is going. But it's actually interesting that within that 80%, there is a lot of digital imaging related developments.
Sure, I bet.
So a lot of like, for example, artificial intelligence to calculate risk scores.
Yeah.
I mean, something that I was like, what is this? Very interesting, intriguing concepts that are part of the clinical arena, but actually we're moving away from the mainstream device development.
Everybody would like someone else to calculate their risk score, I think, so maybe that makes sense. What else in this year's program? Anything stand out that you want to highlight?
Well, remember, TCT always started as this live case cavalcade. We're the first ones to transmit live cases overseas. We really featured the idea of trying to take the earliest Grunzig and Hartzler experiences to teach angioplasty and to learn decision making with real live case material. We've tried to continue to evolve that in the most rigorous and the most professional way that we can. This year we'll have 15 centers, and it'll be about a 50-50 split, US and outside US, but it's probably geographically the most diverse group of centers that we've ever selected. So you'll be seeing centers from China, from India, from Glasgow, from Canada, from South America. So it's a very, very diverse group of centers which have access to some new technologies that we don't have current access to in the United States. So again,
it's
this lens into the future to be able to see early stage work that's being done elsewhere. And it also highlights the fact that TCT has always been a global community of physicians, engineers, scientists, clinicians. So I think it really brings the world together by having an opportunity to visit other labs in different parts of the world.
In real time,
That global concept that Marty's talking about is extremely important for us. I mean, we have all these international collaborations, and we really make an effort for the meeting to be diverse and inclusive and try to bring everybody together.
That's an important theme we've seen.
One thing that is new is the second year, but it's actually been very successful, is the concept of the training pavilions, which now is being adopted worldwide. I mean, we went to Brazil recently, and it's already there, and we're very proud of that. But You know, one of the
things that people need to sign up for separately.
Exactly. So the thing is, we're going to have a dedicated place, as it happened last year. We're going to have 6 dedicated training pavilions. We're going to have around 90 dedicated different workshops for hands-on training, and it's going to actually provide the opportunity to train around 3,600 people in practical hands-on training procedures, techniques, and devices. So it's a very, very exciting part of TCT.
I always joke, even though my background's English literature, I always think that at this point I should be able to deploy a stent. I've been writing about it for so long, so maybe I should go to a training pavilion, see if I could put in a TAVR. Anything else, Greg?
Yeah, well, one thing I'm very excited about this year is a new format for the poster abstract presentations.
Right.
You know, we have, there'll be about 1,000 poster abstracts that'll be presented, and it's a lot of the new breaking science at TCT. And we've gone from paper format to most of them being presented as an electronic digital format with large screens that people can expand and contract by touching the screen, and that's exciting. But we wanted to look for a new way to be able to effectively communicate the message so people have a higher retention of what are the abstracts saying, and can they see most of them, or at least a lot of them. And so we've gone to a brand new poster format. Rather than having small little panels with 10 tables and 4 figures, et cetera, that people would take 20 minutes to read, we're having about 60% of the poster being taken up by one message, one figure with one sentence. For example, with COAPT, it would say that transcatheter mitral valve repair reduces death and heart failure hospitalization in secondary MR. That's 60%, boom. And so people will see that.
About this, and it got quite a discussion going, because people do want, Jack does something similar with their central image.
Exactly.
But a lot of people say, but if you distill this down to a tweet, you don't get the nuance. So are you worried about that balance?
Well, the nuance will be there.
Right.
The side panels will have all the supporting material, but the presenter will start. We did a study and it showed this. Now let me tell you about it. And then they'll talk a little about it for a few more minutes, then there'll be some questions, and then they can zoom in to the supporting tables or graphs. But that central message will be there, and hopefully, this has been described before, we've adapted it from others, but supposedly it does substantially improve the ability to communicate and recall a message.
And I think people like the idea of posters innovating, because the days of the piece of paper stuck on the corkboard, that didn't draw a lot of attention for sure.
Yes.
Okay. Well, lots to look forward to. Thank you so much, the 3 of you, for telling me about it, and I look forward to seeing you in San Francisco in a couple weeks.
Our pleasure.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thanks.
And thank you for watching On Record.